Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. I love this segment. We kind of go around and see all the cool pop culture stuff that we can react to, and we call this Rogue Reactions. And really, it's now officially summer, right? Like it wasn't actually summer prior to this, even though Memorial Day is like the unofficial kickoff of summer. This is now the first official day of summer, so we've had a lot of content so far to kind of react to. And
Yeah, a lot of holdover stuff from the last 2 years. That's
yeah,
all kind of mashing up and banging into each other, man. I
yeah.
mean, the Umbrella Academy dropped today.
What? It did?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No.
Season 3. Yeah.
Get out of
It's
here.
up there already.
When did that happen?
Today.
Oh, I get it, but like, when did they even see? Netflix is so.
No, I've known it was coming. I've seen advertisements for it, but it's not. Netflix doesn't blitz.
No, they really just kind of. I mean, that was. See, Netflix got to get on the ball of promoting. They're not very good at promoting.
Well, I think they felt they were above it because they were the biggest game in town. But I mean, in lieu of recent news, people are starting to scrutinize their practices.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? When Netflix first came out, yeah, obviously they were the only game in town, and they were doing something very innovative. But that's the problem when you innovate, is that other people are going to be like, "Hey, look what those people are doing. Let's do what they do." And then they're also, and I believe you. You don't have to show me your phone. I believe you. I literally just Googled it, and it dropped. Like, look at that.
Yeah. I almost started watching it last night, but it was Obi Wan time.
So yeah, exactly.
I had to take care of that business.
Well, we got our topic of discussion for next week now. Look at that now.
Yes, we do. All do.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely. I don't know what's up with them. I don't claim to be a marketing expert by any stretch of the imagination, so I'm not gonna like judge anybody on that basis. But and I have seen advertisements for season 3 of the Umbrella Academy, but mostly on YouTube. I haven't seen it mainstream. So I don't know what's going on, but it dropped. I mean, people already have their opinions about it, this, that, or the other. About, I very much enjoyed season 2. I thought it was superior to the first season.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So, but now people who really like season 2 are saying season 3 may or may not be up to snuff. I'll find out. I'll be the judge of that myself.
At what point do you listen to the punditry before you actually see, like, or do you soak in the punditry before?
I do not, but I will listen to non-spoiler reactions of things.
Okay.
People do non-spoiler reviews, which I don't do because people tend to spoil. Because I mean, look, if you know stories, if you know cinematic or sequential storytelling, as we do for comic books and all this other stuff, some information is really detrimental to your ability to immerse yourself into it, because basically how how these pieces fit, how they go together, right? So if someone says, "Oh, there's a great big revelation in in Act 3 of whatever," and you could watch it for about 10-15 minutes and figure out what that revelation may or may not be. So I tend not to listen to in-depth reviews, even though they claim to not be spoilerish. Yeah. But there are times when people come around and say, "Hey, I did see it. It's pretty great. I think it's up to snuff with this and that, and you should see it." Or someone saying, "I don't know, it kind of falls short of season 2. I'll listen to that, but I don't necessarily listen to in-depth, deep dives or dissections of whatever this stuff is. See, even for Top Gun, I mean, how complicated could Top Gun have been as a story, right? But I wouldn't listen to any of these non-spoiler reviews because they give away too much. They would tell you too much about Goose's son, or tell you too much about what the mission is about, or there's a sad moment in the middle.
Right. All it takes is one one comment that doesn't appear to be very threatening to what the story is going to be, and I can immediately, like I said, my brain starts working on that one comment. Goes, like it's like a virus almost.
That's what I'm saying. And it won't leave you alone. So that's why I usually don't. And that's what we've got moments of contentions between the two of us, because that's why I don't like to speculate on things, because my mind will just finish the puzzle, and then there's nothing wrong with speculation. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how people make their bread and butter. It's fun. It gets interaction for the source material, for the content. people, people trend about it. They tweet
Mhm.
about it. They Instagram, all that stuff. But for me personally, it's like I won't good at it. I'm just like a dog on a bone with that kind of stuff. If I hear,
Yeah.
oh, there's a revelation in episode 5 that will knock your socks off, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what could that possibly be? And then
Right.
that's it.
That's it. You go down the rabbit hole and you're
yeah,
done.
it's ruined. So that's like a personal thing. But having that been said, the very brief scuttlebutt on season 3 of the Umbrella Academy is it's not quite at season 2 caliber. So we'll see.
I'll be the judge.
We'll look at it ourselves.
So let's talk Obi Wan for a second. Now, how spoilery do you want to get with this? I'm openly asking. We could have done this in the production meeting beforehand, but I chose to want to discuss it on air with you because it's a good question.
Have you seen it?
I have.
Erin hasn't seen any of it. So, do you want to
wait? She hasn't seen any of it, or she hasn't seen the last episode?
According to her, before in the production meeting, she hasn't seen any of it.
Erin is our producer now. See now, okay.
So,
that's
do we want to be respectful of her, or is that her fault for not doing homework?
That's her own fault for not watching any of it. I mean, at this point, even I've seen 6 episodes. That's Erin lost her Disney Plus access. Well, she's not going to see it anyway then, so we can definitely spoil.
That's basically her saying you don't pay her enough. That's what she's basically telling.
I don't pay anybody. That's the best part.
Well, that's why she's not on Disney Plus.
If this was a Sire Studios jam, that's a different story. This is a Rogue Matter jam. I don't pay the bills in Rogue Matter.
We could be spoilerish. I mean, look, here's the thing. There can't be too many things that happen.
Right.
Because almost everybody in the story has to be alive for future stories, right?
Yes.
So,
which is again one of my gripes with a series like this, not the actual series, but just a series like this. It was the gripe with Black Widow. It feels like you're watching something that you might have missed. Like, oh, when I was busy watching the prequels, or when I was busy, watching the actual thing, I must have missed this. And it fits in nicely with all that stuff. But at the same time, what's the level of, like, we know Darth Vader can't die. We know Obi Wan can't die. We know Luke and Leia can't die. Like, I mean, I'm not giving anything away. That's exactly.
Yeah, and I agree with you. But I mean, death is not the only terrible thing that can happen to a character. So,
right.
I mean, that's lowest common denominator of things that cannot happen. But if a story is intricate enough, or written well enough, which is point of contention for a lot of people,
right?
The ramifications for some characters can be really deep. So, your mileage varies.
I'm going to say 3 things about it. One, you like to be very simple with your reactions. Did you like it or not like it? I can't do that. I have to give you my layered onion response to it, because there are some things I like about it, just like in anything in life, right? There's, the internet is not, the internet is zeros and ones, binary choices and things like that, but we're not. Like, there are some things I liked about it, some things I didn't like about it, and I'll go into detail about what I liked about both and what I didn't like about the show. But that's the first thing. One, definitely not something where I'm reading some. I read some reactions, and everyone seems to be generally thumbs up about it. But I'm very curious for the, when that initial euphoria subsides, when you start actually picking it apart, like what people's reactions are going to be to it.
Right.
2, I think they did a nice job by the end, for me, of not ruining the continuity between the prequels and the original trilogy. That was one of my fears. Remember it that we talked about?
Yeah.
I think the ending with Leia, with Obi Wan, he just, again, all he had to do was say something like, will I ever see you again? No, that'd be dangerous for both of us. And I don't know. There was something in the way it was presented where I'm like, okay, this jives. She's gonna, when she gives the message, she's not gonna bring this whole thing up at all. 10 years later, or whenever, whatever we determine the length of time that happened between, Kid Leia and Leia that we know in New Hope. So it was enough for me. Like I said, they didn't need much. They just needed to address it. They needed to address, like, Princess Leia can't bring up that she knows Obi Wan Kenobi. Great, done. Great, you filled a gap in there. Another thing they did, which I thought was really nice for me. I'm not going to say they redeemed the prequels for me in any way, shape, or form. They redeemed, and this is very subjective. This is not a universal, like you all feel this way, and I feel like you should feel this way. This is just for me. Anakin versus Darth Vader. Like, they did a nice job to me of having, for me, reconciling that is actually Anakin behind the Darth Vader costume. Because to me, it's, even by the end of the prequels, I was like, I have a hard time believing that it's this kid, because he just, I don't know. It just, they never synced up to me. But in this, I thought they did a nice job of reconciling that for me. And last thing I'll say about it, and this is, I'm actually on your train of thought right now. This needed to be way more than 6 episodes, because the payoffs didn't hit. It felt very Game of Thronesy in the sense that it felt very rushed, and it felt rushed, just in terms of like the payoffs. Like this last episode, I thought the pacing was very, very good for the first 4 or 5 episodes, but then midway through 5 and 6, like I almost felt like, all right, at the end of episode 5, this is spoiler, but 5 is not the one that just aired today. It has what, Reva gets laser, gets lightsabered. She's basically dying. She stumbles across the message, regarding Luke, and immediately, now this is the spoiler part. Immediately, she's like there, like in episode 6, and I'm like, wait a minute, like how long was the Empire chasing Obi-Wan? How did she get over there so fast? And I guess lightspeed travel just, it just ain't what it used to be. It almost felt like in Game of Thrones, where they would all of a sudden, they would spend seasons crossing, bodies of water. And then in the last season, it's like, no, we need him to be over. We need him to be over in Winterfell. Boom, he's in Winterfell. We need him over in King's Landing. Boom, he's in King's Landing. That's, to me,
No, Lightspeed's always been like that for Star Wars, though. Like, I mean, Luke left Hoth and was suddenly on Dagobah, and then was suddenly at Cloud City.
Yeah.
With a couple of, in the course of the events that were taking place on Cloud City with Han.
Yeah.
With the interrogation, and then him being frozen. And then, Luke shows up 5 minutes later. And then, I mean, so it's always been fast and loose with reality, or with the,
right.
With the time. They've never really locked it down how long it takes to, or whether you could track people through it, or, all that other nonsense,
right.
So, I mean, I get what you're saying about that. And I agree with you. But,
yeah, show's over. Thanks, guys. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Let's get out.
Yeah. Well, these shows
end it now. End it now.
These fast shows, man. They take a lot out of me.
Yeah.
I agree. I can't really disagree with any of the criticisms that I've heard about it. For an extended amount of time, yeah, it's too short. As you've said, as I've always said, like, it's too short. The episodes are too short. It's kind of short shrift. Somewhere I heard, and I don't know if this is true. This is probably not a verifiable truth, but yeah, Aaron.
We're laughing because Aaron was actually, our producer was like, "Do I end the show now?
Yeah.
Do I actually end the show now?" No, we were just kidding. That was sarcasm. This time.
Supposedly the budget was lower than, say, Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian. And in some places, it did look a little cheap.
Yes, I agree with you.
And always when you have a situation where people come to a thing, go away from that thing, and then come back to that thing, you're like, well, we could have done this the first time you came to this thing. It's kind of like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. If Indiana Jones finds the idol, and then the guy takes the idol, then Indiana Jones finds the idol again, and he runs away with the idol. It's like, why didn't we do this in Act 1 so that we could have enough time for the arc, to find the arc? So,
right.
Whenever that happens, you kind of, it always brings up thoughts of pacing. Obi-Wan and Vader have a fight in the beginning, and then that fight kind of weirdly ends.
Yeah.
And then there's more running, and then Obi-Wan stops to confront Vader later.
Right.
So I get it.
Yeah.
I bottom line, it harkens back to a conversation we had 20 years ago when you were in my office at Wizard railing against Attack of the Clones. And I said, yeah, I understand you think it's bad. I just don't care. And so, like, I understand that people think that Obi-Wan is bad or has all these, impediments and stuff like that. I just don't care. It was good to see. I enjoyed seeing it. I enjoyed that they added a little more nuance, a little more meat to the parts in between the movies.
Yes.
One thing I seriously enjoyed, and this is so obscure. I wonder if I should even. It's so weird. It's so niche. At the end of the sixth episode, when Obi-Wan decides that Vader is no longer Anakin anymore, he calls him Darth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is what I wanted to happen in the prequels at the end of Revenge of the Sith, because he does refer to Vader as Darth in A New Hope.
Right.
And you figure if these guys are old companions.
Yes.
And he's constantly trying to reach this guy, he wouldn't call him Darth. He would have called him Anakin.
Correct.
In the Death Star. But Anakin didn't exist at that time. The name Anakin hadn't been introduced into the, into the zeitgeist at that time. So it was conceivable at that time that his name was Darth Vader. It wasn't a title. It was his name. So when he referred to him as Darth in this, I was like, wow, I just got what I wanted from 2005 all the way back in 2005.
Yes,
so,
that goes to what I was saying too. I thought it did a nice job, like you said, for me in reconciling little things in between the movies
and Star Wars is always going to be, I think, whatever supplemental Star Wars material we get from now on, it's always going to be, a victory by inches, not miles. Unless someone comes along. I mean, Taika Waititi supposedly doing his Star Wars movie. Unless someone comes along and completely flips the script on the Star Wars narrative and just kind of renews interest in new Star Wars, in the new potentials of Star Wars, and stops, and this is said with love, because I love the material that we've been getting so far. But instead of picking up the bones of the original carcass of Star Wars, then we're always only going to win by inches in these things. We're only going to get moments of really greatness in things like Book of Boba Fett. We're only going to get moments of the old greatness, like, Luke Skywalker's hallway scene at the end of Mandalorian season 2, or Luke training Grogu, in Book of Boba Fett, and those 2 episodes of just 2 wayward episodes of Book of Boba Fett that were more Mandalorian than Boba Fett. It's fine for me. But it may not. I acknowledge it's not good enough for other people. It's fine for me. These little incremental pieces where I can now, imply the puzzle together while watching the other materials, the larger materials, the movies and reading books. I can put all this supplemental material in the middle and understand that the story is more broad now. But I get that it's not enough for other people. May not be enough for new people. It certainly isn't enough for the old fans, and the old fans are the meanest, nastiest of the bunch, right? And they don't feel that they're being catered to in the right way anymore. I can't tell them that they're wrong. I can't say that they're not correct, but I don't think that the franchise should be wasting a lot of time catering to people like us. I think it should, if
here's the thing with catering,
its own survival, right? I think it should be looking for new people and new things to do.
It's not a question of catering. It's a question of catering to what has come before. I think that's really what it comes down to. And this is for me, all right? I'm just speaking for myself, right? Like, I think that personally, when I'm catering, like what I'm expecting, which then comes off as, well, it wasn't fan service, or, oh, they're not catering to you. These aren't made for you. It's like, no. If you really start, I'm just speaking for myself.
All right.
If you start a storyline, or a character, acts a certain way, and then 5 years, 10 years, 20 years goes by, and then you start the story up again. I'm expecting still, I don't care if that time has passed. I'm expecting you to carry on what you started. I'm not expecting you to, go 180 based off of, what you feel like at the time or what influences you at the time through something that I've already invested my time in. And it's not a question of I've invested my time in, so you deserve to cater to me. It's I've invested my time in this story. I expect this story to continue in a way that doesn't feel that it's completely off the rails or going somewhere, because then at that point, then I do feel upset, because I'm like, well, then, if you were just going to end up trashing the story or trashing the characters or reinventing it on a whim, Last Jedi, I'm not going to have the same. I'm gonna be pissed. And then you could sit there and be like, well, it's your fault. You're pissed. It's like, no, it's your fault for not taking what had come before and going in a logical course.
Hold on. Let me set the record straight. I never said. First of all, I said I understood why people were upset. I understand it. I don't feel as upset as they do, but I understand it. That's A. B. We're not talking legacy characters, right? I don't believe they betrayed Obi Wan in the show. I don't believe they betrayed Leia. I don't believe they really betrayed Anakin or Vader. Depending on what your perspective is. What I'm more referring to is, like, Boba Fett was a one note character. He had 5 lines in the entire, So I mean, there's the talk about that they betrayed his character. It's like,
No.
he didn't have a character. You have to invent a character for him.
Yeah.
Right. So that's new ground you have to break.
Correct.
Right. Mandalorian, didn't even exist,
Correct.
until they did it. Now everyone's universal about Mandalorian. People love Mandalorian. So keep up the good work on that. But I do think that when it comes to, what I mean by not catering to the fans, is that they have to stop picking off the carcass of what came before it. We got to get away from the Skywalker saga. We got to get away from Tatooine. We got to get away from, the Empire and the Rebellion. And there are other parts of
Tatooine is to Star Wars like The Woods was to Walking Dead.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. And it's like, and that, I mean, The Walking Dead, I don't even go down that rabbit hole. But
no, I'm just making that analogy because it's the same thing. My dad and I would watch Walking Dead religiously, not anymore, obviously, and it's the last season and everything. But we'd always laugh because, for the most part, 90% of that show was in the woods because it was just easier to film.
Yeah, because you know why? If that show took place in the desert, there'd be no peril, because you could see walkers from 50 miles away, and you're like, all right, it's time for us to leave. So, there's no jump scares in the desert, or in wide open spaces. And there's more wide open spaces in America than there are in dense woods or in urban environments, urban environments.
But it's the same thing with Star Wars. It's like everything's taking place in Tatooine because it's just
that's
easy to film in the desert.
All of it has to get away from that. And then look, it might have to do it to the extent where even I don't enjoy it anymore. But I think for this franchise to survive, it's going to have to get away from us, and that's what I'm talking about. It's going to have to get away from the gatekeepers and the judgmental types, and it's going to have to forge its new ground and find brand new young, because the young people what kept Star Wars alive since 1977.
Yeah.
And it's going to have to do that. It's going to have to look for new young people. Right now, the way it's going, it's not really recruiting more young people. It's catering to us. And it's not going to survive if it keeps doing that.
Well, you know what I thought was interesting, though, too? Because I thought about that. I thought about in this show, I said, boy, this really is catering. And in many sense now, it's catering to the last 20 years, too, because it has anybody who enjoyed the prequels or grew up with the prequels. This is like a series for them, right? Like The Mandalorian is more of a series for us because it focuses more on the original trilogy.
I'm a prequel fan, so both of them were.
No, I get it, but generationally wise, right? Like I know you particular, you're maybe an exception to the rule, but like Mandalorian is more for our generation of Star Wars fans. But I could see this being both, right? So it's that unique bridge series of this will cater to the original trilogy fans and it'll cater to the prequel fans. But to your point of building it on, I actually thought to myself, I was like, boy, if my son, who still hasn't gotten through episode 4, by the way, Goonies, big thumbs up, got through that in one night. Episode 4, he enjoyed, but he was enjoying. At first he was too young for it. Then he was enjoying it, but basically, got nowhere with it. And I refused to have him watch episode 1 first. So, but I just thought to myself, I'm like, I wonder if then you watch this series in between. Like, if you were to start it at episode 1 and move up, like, do you watch this in the middle? You know, and the next generation that's watching, I think is going to get just as much out of these kind of shows. So, actually, to disagree with your point, only because the nature of streaming now, there is an eternal present. There is no past. There is no future because everything exists simultaneously now to the point where I wonder, and I could be wrong, but this is just my thought. I'm like, no, you know what? They're going to enjoy it just as much, just a little differently
Well, with
because the stories are still good.
with the inception of home media, that pretty much was the same
Yeah,
with the movies, right? It doesn't, but you still have to.
it was different.
What our people of our generation started to discover in their dislike of the prequels were that the generation of kids who grew up with the prequels were adults now, and they were like, no,
Right,
this is our Star Wars, right?
right,
Which is what that generation will discover when the sequel kids grow up,
right.
right? So what I'm saying is, Star Wars survives by recruiting by the Star Wars
Sure,
youth, you know? And
sure.
so if it gets bogged down constantly giving us supplemental material for Star Wars of the past without forging Star Wars of the new, it will kind of fall apart. And the model has proven this out,
Sure.
you know? If Star Wars was only those first 3 movies from 1977 to 1983, it would be gone by now, right? There would be no Clone Wars cartoons
Sure.
or animated series. There'd be no Anakin Skywalker. There'd be no Hayden Christensen. There'd be no Ewan McGregor. There'd
Mhm.
be no Ahsoka. There'd be no. I mean, all the things that are keeping it, that they're potentially keeping it going, would not exist if it didn't realize that it needed to reinvent itself. And we are
Right.
at a choke point now where it's going to need to reinvent itself yet again, because even the sequels were not a reinvention of
Well,
Star
that's the
Wars.
irony too about the sequels, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
think we've gone on record many times, and I've gone on record saying The Force Awakens I thought was really, really good up until Han Solo appeared on screen.
Because it went backwards. It
I
can't
know,
go backwards. It
I
always
know,
has to
which
go
is
forward.
what
The
Jurassic
Mandalorian is going forward,
right,
but everything else since then has been going backward.
right,
I will make allowances for Book of Boba Fett because Boba Fett was not a real character.
sure,
So three-dimensionalizing Boba Fett
yeah,
is going forward.
yeah,
I loved Obi-Wan. I don't mind seeing what happened in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. I don't
mhm,
mind it, but it is kind of, if it's not going backwards, it's a standstill.
yeah.
It's not going forward or backwards. It's standing still. So I
Yeah.
just think it needs to break new ground.
All right. Real quick, let's go around a couple more reactions to some stuff that's not Star Wars, but that was pretty cool in general, and maybe we'll do a trailer truth or trash. Although next week now we can't do that. Now we have to do Umbrella Academy.
We can still do a trailer, truth or trash. I'm pretty sure you will not have seen the entirety of the Umbrella Academy by next
You know
week.
what? I dig that show though, so it's possible. It's possible.
Hmm.
I got a
Hmm.
shot. We'll see. There's no
We'll
movies coming out
see.
this
We'll
weekend,
see.
so
We have you on record saying it's a maybe.
it
So
is
we'll
right.
see.
Top Gun Maverick, just like you were mentioning, tops Doctor Strange 2 as highest grossing film of 2022. And it's shaping up to be an incredible year for Paramount Pictures because it's got a bunch of successful movies. But yeah, Top Gun 2. Um, I would have, I guess the real headline of it, right, is the fact that the comic book, the Marvel formula. Now, Doctor Strange, again, is not the premier Marvel character. But now that we're post Tony Stark and we're post Chris, post Chris Evans, post Robert Downey Jr., uh, you know, the heavyweights that carry the Marvel universe at this point, we might start seeing more of this. I didn't look at it as a shot at Marvel Studios or their dominance, more as I was excited that something non-comic book was actually worth going to the theater for to see, even though it happened to also be a sequel. At least that's the way I looked at it. I thought this was a win for Top Gun, not a loss for Marvel. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. But I've seen a bunch of movies that have not been comic book related in the theater. So
Yeah,
I mean, I get what you're saying, but it's kind of a nothing burger for me, because anything that I really want to see, I just go see. You know, um, it's both a good thing and a kind of a bad thing. You know, if we're looking at it from the MCU perspective, anytime someone breaks your monopoly, it's not a great thing. You know, even though it's a good thing for the genre and it's a good thing for the industry in and of itself. But I mean, you know, if they are as great as they think they are, as great as we think that they are, if they as great as they used to be, that they can take the competition. We'll see.
Yeah. On that same bandwagon note, Miss Marvel debuts with lowest viewership for an MCU series. This is from Heroic Hollywood as well. The latest series from Marvel Studios collected only 775,000 U.S. households in the first 5 days. This puts Miss Marvel below Hawkeye's 1.5 million, which was previously the lowest viewed premiere for a live-action MCU series. The article does go on and ask the question, is it because they also dropped Obi Wan the exact same time? And I got to almost say it's a little bit of a combination of, a little column A, a little column B thing. Miss Marvel is a very obscure character, does not have a huge history with Marvel. So folks like us, I mean, unless you lived at a comic book store and got access to free comics constantly, probably wasn't on, it's not something we're necessarily having on our pull list all the time right now. It's a relatively, it's a teen skewing character in general. So demographic wise, I think it had an uphill battle, but I do think put that also that you're competing against, Obi Wan, which is who doesn't know, that's got 60 years worth of or 50 years worth of, 45 plus years of potential fandom behind. Yeah, I think it's gonna get lost in the crowd of this streaming release schedule.
I mean, it was out before I even knew it was out. It was coming out. I didn't even know it was going to be a thing, so they didn't even really advertise it. It's weird. It's the same as what you were saying about the Umbrella Academy. So
yeah,
I mean, but like it's all there in perpetuity, right? Just like you were saying about the the supplemental materials for Star Wars. Like it's all there now. So we'll see.
And
it might make up for it in the aggregate.
Finally, here's the cool part. This is great news. A She-Hulk promotional Comic-Con banner spotted in San Diego. It looks like She-Hulk will have a big presence at Comic-Con. After its hiatus due to the pandemic, Comic-Con is looking to make its return in July. With the world's most popular convention making its triumphant return, some exciting new promotional material has popped up. They posted on Twitter, the official San Diego Comic-Con Twitter account at @comic_con. Hey, look, just like Rogue_Matter. We're back. SDCC 2022. Amazon is sending Lord of the Rings there as well too. So that's been announced as well too. It will have a presence in San Diego Comic-Con. So it looks like things are getting back to pre-pandemic excitement in terms of the Comic-Con universe. Now we'll see if the fans follow. I know I will be there, so I'm just thrilled. I'm thrilled to spend 3-4 days in San Diego, soaking up some sun and seeing some old friends and checking out what people are kind of excited about. But it's good. It's good news. It's just what it means. Right now, the last few years, we've had a lot of things where, you had DC Fandom, you have Disney's, as a D23, that kind of stuff where they're hosting their own conventions. So it doesn't mean Comic-Con's going to last forever and it's going to be this big thing, but it's good to see the studios, even Marvel too, putting some juice back into.
I think everybody needs to.
Show. What's that?
I think everybody needs to.
Yeah.
So good for them.
I can't wait. It's going to be great. I'm going to sit by a pool for 3 days. I mean, I'm going to do work if my wife is listening. I'm going to be busy, very busy. Very, very busy. All right. When we come back, Until I Die, it is the next big thing from Rogue Matter. It is here. It is launched, and we've got the creator, Jason Sturr, on to discuss it. Awesome dude. Interesting guy. What a past. What a history he's got. That is coming up next.
Rogue Wave.
Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rogue Wave podcast. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and tune in every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, for a brand new episode of the Rogue Wave podcast.